Hello, everyone. My name is Kevin Dedner. I am the founder and CEO of Hurdle Health. I'm privileged to be here with you today to have a very important conversation about Black men's mental health. I also, before we jump into the conversation, I want to take a moment to thank Black Enterprise. This conversation is moving into its 5th year. And I think that's remarkable because that means that Black Enterprise took the very progressive step of talking about Black men's mental health before it was very popular and sexy. Today, I'm joined by Dr. Jeff Rocker and Jay Barnett, both who have both been doing amazing work in Black men's health. I'm gonna yield the floor and let the two of them both introduce themselves and tell a little bit about their work, starting with Dr. Jeff Rocker. Jeff.
Thanks for the introduction, Kevin. I appreciate it. So once again, like you mentioned, my name is Dr. Jeff Rocker, also known as a celebrity therapist. I do a lot of work in the community, as well as work with a lot of celebrities, athletes, and entertainers as well. So one of the popular programs that I do in the community is something called hip hop therapy, where I teach kids about mental health through the use of hip hop.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you, Kevin. Former professional athlete, author, speaker, attorney, marriage and family therapist. And I'm excited to be on this platform today, man, and have this conversation. And also to go check out my latest book, For Men, Just Heal Grow, which is a men's journal. And so I'm excited to get men to start journaling and open up and expressing their thoughts.
Thank you. Thank you both. Let's just jump right in. I alluded to this earlier that this conversation is in its 5th year. And so much has happened just this past year with the global pandemic, the murder of George Floyd. And Dr. Jeff, why don't you tell us, what do you think has changed and why has the conversation about Black men's health become more normal in society, if you will?
You know, I would say when people look at the pandemic, people look at it in a negative sense, which is, of course, a lot of trauma is attached to the pandemic, but also what it did is it highlighted the mental health issues that people go through on a day-to-day basis, where people were able to, be distracted by work or even school. Now they actually had to deal with their problems. You couldn't hide away from these issues any longer. So I think the pandemic also helped, highlight those issues, let people work on it, also just learn how to deal with it overall and actually ask for help for their first time. So I think that was perfect.
And Jay, you have anything you'd like to add to that?
Yeah, I think, alluding to what Jeff said, I think the pandemic allowed us to really look within ourselves and look at our issues. Mm-hmm. But more importantly, when the George Floyd incident happened, the world had to see Black men as being human beings. And I think a lot of this started behind the death of Kobe Bryant. When Kobe passed, you saw a lot of Black men expressing emotions openly because Kobe was someone that we revered, we respected, not just who he was as an athlete, but just who he was as a man and how he evolved. And when the George Floyd incident took place, I think the world had to stop and pay attention that Black men were humans, Black men were not machines. And then we as Black men had to look within ourselves to say, hey, our lives have been impacted, not just from the Eric Gardner and all of the Trayvon Martins and all of the other Black men that were killed by police officers, that this actually took a toll on our mental health, and the world had to pay attention and begin listening and begin really having a conversation how important our mental health has been.
Yeah, I think you mentioned Kobe's death. And it's interesting because I never thought about Kobe's death sort of being a precursor to the pandemic, to the murder of George Floyd. and how it showed sort of the emotional vulnerability of Black men. Dr. Jeff, tell me, in your opinion, how important it is for Black men to be able to express and show that emotion. And then the second part of that question is how that shows our humanity to others.
You know, Kevin, it is tremendously important. I always say that Black boys want to be black men one day. And Black men, all they want to do is be free. Free from judgment, free from poverty, just free, or to be mentally free is the goal for most Black men, if not all Black men. And also free to express themselves, where before they were never comfortable expressing their emotions, their feelings, because of the fear of being criticized by their peers, family members, even friends. But I think now having professionals who look like them, who even talk like them, just give them a sense of comfort. Now they're more than ever available to open up to the professionals like myself and also Jay as well.
Jay, you want to build on that?
Yeah, I think it's so important that Black men are seen, and then they are heard. I think for so long, Black men have kind of been seen and ostracized as just being criminals. They've been just only seen as athletes, only individuals who can contribute in an athletic and in an entertaining way. And I think the George Floyd incident, it allowed our humanity, because you saw Black men weeping. Anytime that you have to witness a very traumatic event and in a secondary traumatic way, because secondarily that trauma impacted our perception of ourselves, because in a Black man's eyes, even myself as an educated Black man, I still said, man, they still don't see us. I mean, you look at how this man died. Right. I mean, even till today, to try to process how Derek Chauvin kept his knee on this man's neck is symbolic to what Black men have felt since our existence. Yeah. Right. That society is on our neck. The white man is on our neck. Our families are on our neck. The community's on our neck. And I think what most Black men are really looking for, as Jeff said, we're just looking to breathe.
Yeah.
And I think when we have spaces like this, and we're able to have conversation for us to express without the judgment, I cannot tell you how many times that I'm working with brothers who are married and they are afraid to say how they really feel, not because they don't love their wife, because they fear judgment. Mm-hmm. And many of them have felt the pressure of this judgment from their own mothers. Yeah. And so I think these conversations are important, because not only does it change how the world sees us, but it also changes how the community and the women and everyone that's involved, how they see us, to see us as the men that we are, that if I cannot provide nothing in a monetary and in a way that could push the family forward, could you still accept me just for who I am? And I think that's why it's important for the world to see the true humanity of who we are as Black men.
And not only that, Jay, for them to see us as well. Representation matters more than anything.
Absolutely, absolutely.
You see Black males like myself and you, it goes a long way. I know growing up in Miami, we didn't have that. People were doing drugs, gang violence, substance abuse. So to see a Black therapist that you can actually go to have these conversations with, can change your whole life.
Yeah, and it's life-changing too, Kevin, because one of the things when I was in grad school, I went to grad school late. I went to grad school at 33 and graduated at 37. And so Here I am 39, and I had no idea that what I was working for was preparing me for what was coming as a Black male therapist. I talk about my issues after football and dealing with depression and being a 2-time suicide survivor. So therapy for me was a game changer, but also understanding the power of my thought process in my mental health, how important that was. And as Jeff said, think about this, man. You go to any school right now and you ask a young Black boy what he wants to become. Everybody wants to become an athlete, or they want to become an entertainer. So having representation, guys like Jeff and I, to be therapists, or whether you are a psychologist or whether you are a counselor, it's important, because let's be honest, it is not until I understand your walk, I don't have to be in your shoes, but I can understand your walk, that allows me to connect to you. Absolutely. And that's the difference maker when you have faces that are familiar in these spaces when it comes to mental health.
Let me push on this, Jay. And Jay, first of all, thank you for sharing your story, and also congratulations on your book. I think they put together this panel beautifully. All of us are fierce advocates for therapy.
Oh, yeah.
In my book, I wrote a book, Every Conscious Black Man Needs to Be in Therapy, right? And so I want to ask the two of you all, do you believe in that statement? And if you believe in that statement, why is therapy so important for Black men in particular?
I think therapy is important for Black men to help us unlock this mind, right? This is a platform, so I want to make sure I respect, Black enterprise, but it's the mind screw up that we've had from society, from slavery, from the social constructs, from all of these different social messages that has been indoctrinated into who we are as a man. Because once I have an understanding of what a root issue is, I understand of my family dynamics, I have an understanding of why I behave a certain way, I can now see on the other side how it's impacting my life. See, until you unlock what has been done to you, you cannot free yourself to become who you need or who you desire to become. And that's what therapy allows you to deprogram, unprogram, and reprogram. And Black men need that, because so many of us have taken what society has given us, what our families have given us, what our experiences have given us, what we've experienced through our deficits. And we're showing up to the world, Kevin and Jeff, we're showing up to the world with our questions. And when you show up to the world with a question as a Black man, I assure you, you're not going to like the answer that they're going to give you. So what therapy is going to allow you to do is it's going to allow you to show up as an answer. It's going to allow you to show up as an answer to where you're not asking the world to validate you. You're showing up understanding that in your consciousness, that my thoughts are valid, my feelings are valid, and my emotions are valid. And I think that's why therapy is so important for Black men.
Yeah. So Dr. Jeff, I want to push on this point that Jay has made. Mm-hmm. There may be some men who are watching this discussion, and they've over the last year have had feelings, and they've not moved forward on processing their feelings or even considering seeking therapy. I believe, as Jay just shared out, that for us to become whole, that internal reflection and with the help of a professional is key to us becoming whole. What would you say to men who might be watching this discussion who've not started that journey of that internal reflection with the help of a professional?
I would tell those same men that we are here for you. This is not an easy process. Whoever thinks therapy is just easy, it's not. Particularly for men, Black males, to say the least, for them to open up, to be transparent, to be vulnerable where they felt like they never could be vulnerable in the past, it's a game changer for them. So I think as clinicians, we got to be patient, but as society, I understand it's a journey for Black men to get to this point. I always say that everything makes sense in context if you know somebody's story. And for Black males, a lot of times, a lot of people don't give them an opportunity to share their story. So when you see Black men, they say they are aggressive. No, they're not aggressive, they're hurt. They say Black men are mad, they're angry. No, they're disappointed in the system. These are things that if you look into the Black man's story, it will make so much sense into the behaviors and the way they see the world, so we can better off helping them. And that's what I want to let the Black man know, that we are here to debunk all these negative narratives about you, and we're here to help you throughout the whole process.
Yeah.
Jeff,
sorry, Jay, you have something you want to weigh in?
I don't listen. Jeff triggered something in me. And what he triggered was when he said the word that we're not angry or mad, we're disappointed.
Yeah, that moved me too.
Kevin, there's so many of us are disappointed, bro.
Yeah.
Because of what we didn't have, man, what we didn't get, how we weren't loved, how we weren't taught,
Mm-hmm.
That's why I have a heart for Black men. Even when Jeff and I connected, man, I love that brother. I honor him for what he do. I honor him for, you know, his expertise. But not only that, I just honor him for who he is. I honor you for who you are. And I think so many times as Black men, we feel that we have to present ourselves with something tangible to be accepted.
Mm.
So when we are going after something and we don't get it and it doesn't render us what we want, not only are we not disappointed about our pursuits, we're disappointed within ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And this causes us to self-harm and to self-medicate.
Yeah.
And so for those brothers that are watching, man, listen, bro, I've been there.
Yeah.
I'm talking about disappointment after disappointment, even the disappointments that we share from our dads, from the men that were supposed to be in our lives. And so, man, like Jeff said, it's a tough journey. And this is, you know, what Jeff and I are right now, even Kevin, with you writing a book about the conscious Black man going out there, this is new territory that we're charting on.
Absolutely.
The world has never seen Black men as open, as expressive, and as vulnerable. So it's
well, the
new.
world
And
didn't
here's
believe we had feelings.
Yeah. I just shared, you know, when I was up in New York speaking at iHeart, how my mother, who's been watching a lot of my YouTube stuff, she said to me, Jay, I'm sorry, but I didn't know men had feelings.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's true. Both of you are trained therapists. I'm not. I lead a mental health company that was inspired by my own personal experience with depression. But one of the things that has been so striking to me, and I want you all to speak a bit to this, is how depression shows up, manifests in Black men, and it looks different than it looks in other populations, right? That was such an astonishing thing to me. And Jeff, when you talked about the disappointment, it also made me think about how the depression shows up, because it doesn't look the way in other populations.
Mm-hmm. You know, particularly for depression in Black males, the pandemic is a good indicator of a lot of men who are going through depression, where their identity was attached to being a provider. When they was not able to provide for their family, guess what? They lost the sense of who they were and who they're supposed to be. So for Black men, when they're not working, because remember, you go all the way back to slavery, Black men were taught to work despite whatever issues they may be going through. You could be hurt, you could be in pain, but you better work that cornfield. That's what slavery did to Black men. And even back then, they still carry that same mindset even now. Despite what's going on in the world, you still must work. You still must perform at a high level to protect yourself and your family. I think for now, when Black men, when you took away their job, you took away their employment, they lost the sense of who they are and who they're supposed to be. I think helping them gather themselves. We're not attaching their employment to identity, but more so attaching their culture to their identity, who they are and who they want to be. I think that goes a long way. So that's what it looks like with depression, and particularly in Black men nowadays.
So, you know, we've had a really serious conversation, talked about identity, depression a bit. Gentlemen, are you optimistic about the mental health of Black men and where we're headed?
You see, Kevin, we both laugh, right? And,
right.
And listen, and we was on cue with it.
It sure was.
Oh man.
Well, so I don't want to make any assumptions. What is the answer? Like, where are we headed? I mean, we've turned the corner. The conversation, we the three of us, and even Black Enterprise, we were ahead of the world in talking about these issues, right? But now it seems that the world has caught up to us. So what is that going to mean for our future collectively as Black men?
Well, I wouldn't say they caught up. I said they were heading in the right direction.
Yeah,
that's fair.
Yeah, thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think what Jeff said, man, they are headed in the right direction. If the APA just put out, I actually posted one of their articles where they're sort of trying to restructure even the APA. Which is the American Psychology Association. They're trying to restructure a lot of their, a lot of their literature to begin to help Black men, because now they're seeing the disparity and seeing that Black men have not been served as well in the mental health industry. When you look at Jeff and I have a small network, Kevin, of Black men that are therapists, and each one of us have been overworked this past year and a half.
Yeah.
While it's been great for us to grace the platform and to share and to be voices and to help different companies, different initiatives foster in, understanding these mental health challenges, but it's also have been quite a bit exhausting, if I may be transparent, because there's not many Black male therapists, there's not many Black male counselors. There are quite a few Black male social workers, but when you're looking at the clinical side, someone who's going to take them through the journey of healing, man, is very limited. Yeah. And even from the psychiatrist perspective, right? 41,000 psychiatrists across the country, less than 4%, probably even less than that, less than 2% are Black. And so we have a long ways to go, and how it start for us to be, to even feel like, and again, we've done some work, but it's an uphill battle, because there are a lot of brothers that, I mean, when I'm doing a live on Instagram or I do an interview, I'm flooded with DMs from brothers, and it's heartbreaking that I can't get to all of them. And I've not only heard from just, Jeff and others, but other guys that we're overworked. And it's important, because I tell you, Kevin, the toughest thing for me was to sit, because I was still in private practice at the time before I went virtual. The hardest thing was to walk a white kid through his depressive and manic state while dealing with the George Floyd thing. And it was a challenge, because as a Black man, I had to put on my armor. I had to armor up. Nothing with this white kid, nothing against him or anything, but I didn't have a place to process my emotions of how I felt. Yeah. Because in their mind, that his mom wasn't concerned about that. She was concerned, hey, my son is suicidal. Can we get in? And so a year and a half of kind of masking that. And I'm a therapist that believe in every therapist should have a therapist. And so for me, man, it was critical during that time. And so when I think about, and I coined this phrase during that time, Black exhausted, that, just the emotional stress and turmoil that we've had to endure over the past year and a half. I think we are on the right path, but there's much work to be done.
A long way to go.
Well, we're getting to a point that we're running out of time. And I think, as I try to think about how we might round out the conversation, there are a couple ways that we can go here. But one of the things I think makes the most sense is for us to try to maybe package advice that we can give to men, and to think of the men out there in a couple categories: men who started the work and they're making good progress, men who've not started the work at all, right? They're not even considering it, but somehow they found themselves watching the three of us talk about Black men's mental health. What advice would you give those two men?
I would say, Kevin, that let them know that everyone needs therapy. A lot of times, men, we feel like we don't need it. I'm here to tell them that it's okay to seek help, despite whatever you may be going through or think you may not be going through. Just sometimes to check in. This is as much as you go and get a physical every year. Get a mental health checkup every year, just to make sure everything is going the way it needs to be going. Because as a Black man, we have to unpack all these generational curses that we have been through throughout 8 years of unpacking, and the therapist allows you to do so. So moving forward, the advice I give to Black men is to create a generational health for them as well as their families, because that is going to change everything moving forward for them and see life very differently. Like I said, we talked about earlier, we have therapists who look like you, talk like you, and can relate to you, can identify issues that you're going through, and also the trauma that you're experiencing. You don't have to feel like, no one's going to understand you or no one cares. So I'm here to tell you, I care about you. I can speak for Jay, and I can tell you he cares about you as well. There's a lot of Black therapists here doing great work in the community, and they're here to help all of you. Just ask for help.
Thank you for that, Dr. Jeff. Jay?
I just want to encourage your brothers, man, to let them know that they're needed. So many times as Black men, we feel like we're not valuable, even though we are valued. We don't feel valuable to ourselves. Most of us only feel valuable to the point that we have to produce something or provide something, or in some cases perform, as Jeff spoke of earlier. And I just want to encourage those men that they are valuable, that they are needed. The infrastructure of our community is dependent on Black men healing.
Yeah.
And I want
say that again. Say that again. That statement. Say it again.
The infrastructure of our community is dependent upon Black men healing. We need you, brothers, and we need your voices. There are many Black women on the front lines, politically, socially, emotionally, mentally, career-wise. Black women are the leading women right now, right, when it comes to entrepreneurship and creating new businesses. But we can take that role of support system to where we stop competing against our sisters and competing against those within our community and start collaborating, start joining forces, because when I heal, I can heal the next brother. Because what we have is we have a lot of broken men that are joining up, and they're doing nothing more but then breaking the community. Every time I see brothers standing on the corner, it hurts my heart, right? When I see brothers walking around and just trying to, they're lost and they're just trying to figure it out, my heart goes out to them, because I know that when a man don't have a vision for his life, he will wonder the rest of his life. And so I encourage brothers, man, and be open to learning more about who you become. We know we know about who you was and the experiences and what you've seen, but allow therapy to show you who you can become beyond what you've experienced.
Right. Well, gentlemen, I wish we had more time. I think the three of us could talk about this subject all day long. And I just want to thank you all for the work that you're doing, the difference that you're making. And I also want to thank Black Enterprise for convening us today. And I echo your statements. Every Black man, every conscious Black man in America should be in therapy. Thank you all for this conversation.
Not a problem, Kevin.
Thank you guys.